Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Wade, Partnership Manager here at Bitwave. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Patrick Camuso, CPA. Patrick, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Love what you've been doing recently with all the content that you've been creating and how you're also involved with the crypto CFO group. And I would love to kind of hear your story. If you could provide a brief introduction to your firm and how you got into the Web3 space.
Yeah, definitely. So my firm, Camuso CPA, was started in 2016. And, we were one of the first CPA firms really focused on working with crypto investors and crypto businesses. Back then, it was really, investors that got into the space early on, mostly in Bitcoin, then Ethereum, and then also companies that were mining Bitcoin back then. That was really what it was in the early days. And then my company and my skill set has really just grown as the industry has grown. We've seen it go from just Bitcoin and Ethereum, then to the proliferation of ICOs. Then we've seen all of the blockchains, then DeFi, NFTs, and Web3. So with each step of that cycle, I've had to upskill and learn and grow with the industry, and I've been lucky enough to start that early and sort of take this learning curve through each step of the way. My career before starting Camuso CPA was in the Big Four, specifically in the financial services tax group. So then before I started my firm, I was working very heavily with mutual funds, hedge funds, private equity funds, and we were dealing with very similar issues to what I found myself dealing with in crypto: large unstructured data sets that we had to normalize and categorize for tax purposes and then take them through the full tax cycle. So that experience was able to translate over very well into building accounting systems and due diligence processes for the nuances that we all are aware of in the crypto industry. So that's sort of what led me into it. Back then I was really interested in just the financial world, learned about the money printing, the Federal Reserve, got involved in all the precious metals. That's what led me to the Bitcoin white paper. And I just realized very early on the power of Bitcoin and the fact that it also is an accounting technology. So, that's how I found myself involved so early. And then, took the leap of faith with starting my firm and basically haven't looked back since. And now we work with, a large group of both investors and companies that are in the space.
Amazing. I love it. So it sounds like you moved from TradFi now to basically DeFi accounting and you have that experience. So I think it was Deloitte that you were at
Yep. Yes.
previously. Congratulations on launching the own firm.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, it's great to have that fundamental understanding of where we were some time ago. You mentioned Bitcoin, Ethereum, and now we've been seeing more and more businesses perhaps launch their own token. I was wondering, what do you find interesting in the space right now as it pertains to Web3 accounting, tax, and compliance, and where do you see it progress throughout the year?
Yeah, I think over the past 2 years, we've seen the space explode in terms of the regulatory complexity and the pace at which we're seeing this develop. And there's a lot of areas that are top of mind for me. One of them being IRS tax enforcement. We've recently seen the Justice Department with the indictment for the first crypto tax case for the fraudulent tax returns. I think that there's indications we're going to see a big uptick in that. So that's something that I'm monitoring closely because, going back to the fact that I've been in this space since 2016, taxes weren't a very popular thing back then. So this is something I've been sort of warning about and preaching about for a long time. And I think we're going to see a lot more tax enforcement as we move forward. Additionally, I think there's some sort of emerging tax issues that are a result of some of the just developments that we're seeing with, number one, the fact that there's a lot of DAOs now, decentralized autonomous organizations. The nature of them, the decentralized nature of them, creates a lot of complexities around entity structuring, and that is going to drive a lot of their tax and accounting decisions. So I think that is another space that I'm watching closely with a lot of complex emerging tax issues. And another, big one that I've been focused on now that I think is going overlooked industry wide and is causing huge tax risks to many companies is sales taxes and how those can be applicable to many on-chain transactions, including transactions involving NFTs. And a lot of times these taxes can, have a retroactive nature to them. So those are, some of the big ones that I'm focusing on now. But overall, there's an evolving regulatory landscape that I think we have to stay on top of, and it's going to be constantly changing. And then in that same token, as you know, with Bitwave, the landscape of just back office technologies is constantly evolving. So that is another thing that I have to constantly stay on top on to just make sure that we're building the right technology stack for the companies that I work with.
Right. Yep. Certainly. Yeah. It seems like the landscapes of various Web3 companies becoming more complex.
Oh yeah.
You know, thinking 2 years ago, maybe even last year, a lot of single entity organizations, but now we're seeing multi-entity organizations. They might have a US subsidiary, perhaps a DAO that's located outside of the United States with their own token launch, which
Yep.
kind of leads to my next question here. What are your thoughts about a lot of these companies that have been launching their own tokens? Any insights that you can provide to companies that are considering launching their own perhaps ICO?
Yeah. Like you, I've seen, a large uptick in that. It's sort of a trend that I've been seeing recently. And there are some considerations around it. Number one, you want to be proactive with contacting experienced legal advisors and tax advisors and having them work closely together. There's going to be many legal considerations around your token launch in terms of classifying your token as a security, a utility, or another classification. And then based off of that, that's going to drive a lot of our considerations on the tax side related to how are we going to classify this token for tax purposes? How can you structure the token launch in the most tax efficient manner? And the considerations around record keeping and reporting as well. Outside of that, I would say, companies that are launching tokens, you need to really focus on building a strong value proposition around the token and building utility into it. And then being transparent with the community that you build, especially related to your product roadmap and your tokenomics and those types of considerations to ensure that it's going to be a long-term success.
Right. Yep. A lot of considerations, and there certainly needs to be some type of methodology behind the token launch to provide that type of sustainability for the long term.
Absolutely.
And it appears that we're currently in a type of bull cycle. A lot of activity happening across different blockchains. What additional insights can you provide to Web3 companies that are looking to really make the most out of the current market conditions?
Definitely. Well, just like a general consideration, I would say is like each bull cycle is going to bring in tons of new users, and it's really, time for companies to seek that opportunity to increase their market share. But in order to do so, you need to make sure that scalability is a consideration. And hopefully it was during the bear market in terms of building up your teams and your platform to be able to take on more clients, more users, and to be able to serve them properly so you keep them as long-term customers. So I think that's number one. Getting into more of the tax and accounting considerations, I would say compliance should not be an afterthought. Like we both stated, we're in an evolving regulatory environment that is just growing in complexity, and you don't want to overlook any of these things. Obviously, as a Web3 founder, you're always going to have many different competing interests for your time and attention, and sometimes compliance can fall out at the wayside, especially during a bull run. But that can come back to really hurt companies and hurt their bottom line. And the problem with these sort of tax surprises, if they go overlooked, is that you can't really control the timing of them. So you don't want to get hit with a tax notice or a tax bill during the next bear market when you're facing possible cash flow concerns. Which would also bring me to the point of just planning, past this cycle as well, because you want to, manage your treasury in a way where you're investing in acquiring new users, but you still want to make sure that you're going to keep enough in your treasury to survive the next bear market. And even outside of just the normal treasury management, one issue I see companies make basically every cycle is, they may be getting paid in Ethereum, for instance, or another asset that has validity that's not a stable coin. You want to at least do tax projections and take the taxes and remove the validity risk from it and put them into a stable or put them into USD. Because I have seen in past cycles, companies, earn a ton in Ethereum. They're not estimating their taxes. A bear market comes right before the tax season, and now they're stuck selling twice the amount of ETH that they would have had to do just to cover their taxes. So just managing your treasury, managing your compliance and your tax projections. And a lot of that can be accomplished with just planning in advance with cash flow forecasts and tax projections and making those scenario based. So, you can look at decisions from a objective standpoint. If the bull market continues, this is what things will look like. If we trade sideways, this is what things will look like. And when the next bear market comes, hopefully we have a scenario for that and we have cash flow built in and you're prepared for that as well.
Remarkable. Yeah, it's great to work with professionals like yourself, Patrick, that have that sense of understanding. Like, we've gone through a bull cycle before, we've gone through a bear cycle, we've seen the type of risks, and now being able to share that with potential clients, with other partners is essential. So that way we can have that strategy, that sense of foresight, so we can plan accordingly as it pertains to Web3 tax. So super
Absolutely.
insightful. And it sounds like you do work across different vertical markets. I'd love to learn more about what makes a good client for you.
Yeah, definitely. What I would say, like the commonality between all of our clients is that they're transacting on chain, and that leads to them having unique tax and accounting considerations. And that's where we come in. So we do work with, high net worth investors with extremely complex portfolios, and we handle the accounting and we handle the taxes for that. On the Web3 side, we work with a lot of different types of companies, crypto native companies, node operators, miners, those types of things, SaaS companies, or even just service providers that are accepting crypto as a form of payment. More recently, we've been seeing a lot of companies that are trying to bring real world assets on chain, and working with them on creating accounting systems and the tax considerations around that. And another big one that we've been working with more recently are gaming companies, because there's been a big uptick in blockchain gaming as well. And all of these companies are going to have each company that we work with, they all have the similarity that they're transacting on chain, but each one is going to come with its own unique set of needs and considerations. So we really do just take it client by client and look at each one individually, but we are working across a lot of different verticals.
Excellent. Well, appreciate it, Patrick. Always a pleasure catching up. Appreciate you. Appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.